Hey everyone, how much do you really know about the two biggest conflicts in human history? World War I and World War II completely reshaped our world, but some of the most mind-blowing facts get left out of the history books. So today, we're diving deep into some truly wild and lesser-known details from both wars. Buckle up. Let's start with the Great War, World War I. It was called the war to end all wars, but it was also a war of bizarre firsts and shocking realities. For instance, did you know that plastic surgery was basically invented during WW1? A surgeon named Harold Gillies was horrified by the facial injuries soldiers were suffering in the trenches. He pioneered new techniques to rebuild faces, essentially creating modern plastic surgery from the horrors of the battlefield. It's a strange but incredible silver lining. And speaking of the trenches, life there was even worse than you can imagine. Aside from the constant threat of shelling and machine guns, soldiers dealt with something called trench foot, a fungal infection from standing in cold, wet mud for days on end that could lead to amputation. But they also had another enemy, rats. Not just any rats, these were rats that fed on corpses and grew to be the size of cats. Soldiers would tell stories of waking up to find these massive rats nibbling on them. Absolutely terrifying. Here's a fact that sounds like it's from a spy movie. During WW1, Britain built a fake city. To protect a crucial munitions factory near London, they built a decoy town about a mile away, complete with fake buildings, roads, and flickering lights powered by batteries to mimic activity. The goal was to trick German bombers into dropping their bombs on the fake city instead of the real factory. It was a massive life-saving illusion. But perhaps one of the most heartwarming stories from the war is the Christmas truce of 1914. Along parts of the Western Front on Christmas Day, German and British soldiers spontaneously stopped fighting. They climbed out of their trenches, shook hands in no man's land, exchanged gifts like cigarettes and buttons, and even played soccer together. For one brief magical day, their shared humanity was more powerful than the war. Now let's fast forward a couple of decades to World War II. The technology was more advanced, the scale was even bigger, and the stories are just as unbelievable. You've heard of D-Day, but have you heard of the Ghost Army? To deceive the Germans about the location of the Normandy landings, the Allies created a completely fake army, officially known as the 23rd Headquarters Special Troops. This unit used inflatable tanks, fake radio transmissions, and sound trucks blasting the noise of moving armies to make the Germans think the invasion would happen at Pas de Calais. It was one of the most brilliant and successful deceptions in military history. And for all the men who fought, let's not forget the women. In the Soviet Union, there was an all-female regiment of bomber pilots so feared by the Germans that they were nicknamed the Nachthexen, or the Night Witches. They flew outdated, noisy biplanes made of plywood and canvas, and they could only carry 2 bombs at a time. To avoid being detected by radar, they'd cut their engines near their targets and glide in silently, making a whooshing sound that their enemies compared to a witch's broomstick. They flew over 23,000 missions and were incredibly effective. True heroes. Here's a weird one for you. Did you know the Fanta soda you might have in your fridge has its origins in Nazi Germany? When the war started, a trade embargo meant the German Coca-Cola bottling company couldn't get the syrup from the US. The head of the company, Max Keith, needed to keep the factory running. So he invented a new drink using whatever ingredients he could find, like leftover apple fibers and whey. He called it Fanta, short for the German word for fantasy or imagination. And finally, a story of incredible survival. A Japanese man named Tsutomu Yamaguchi is the only person officially recognized by the Japanese government to have survived both atomic bombings. He was in Hiroshima on a business trip when the first bomb dropped, about 3 kilometers from ground zero. He was badly burned but survived. He then traveled back to his home in Nagasaki. 3 days later, while telling his boss about the first blast, the second atomic bomb detonated. Incredibly, he survived that one too and lived to be 93 years old. His story is a powerful, almost unbelievable testament to both the destructive power of these weapons and the resilience of the human spirit. These wars defined the 20th century, and they're filled with endless stories of horror, innovation, and incredible bravery. The more we learn, the more we understand the world we live in today. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments which of these facts blew your mind the most. Subscribe.